Hey, friend, how to describe the conversation in front of us here. This is the third time that Kevin has come on the podcast, and we even joke a little bit about, like, are we going to talk about the same thing? But no, we end up exploring problem solving at small business, as small business leaders, and through the lens of our businesses being ours versus God's, and which posture we have. And I'm going to tell you, just every time I get to spend time with Kevin, I walk away feeling more at peace. I feel more clarity as to God's presence in my businesses. And I know for you, it will be the same about how God cares about you, about how we can trust him, and how critical that is. And so I am so eager for you to have that same experience. So enjoy this conversation with Kevin. It's one to just sit with. It's not like a rush through. We explore puzzles, and we talk a lot about puzzles, and even them as a metaphor. So I know you'll enjoy this time. So enjoy it. Welcome to the Restoration Group podcast, where we are sometimes silly, and there's already been plenty of laughter before we started recording, but we are always serious about investing in Oklahoma City leaders who desire to integrate their work into their Christian faith. I'm your host, Clay Steves, and today I am joined, I don't have words. I know I have lots of words. I know I talk a lot. I don't have superlatives or descriptions for Kevin, but I'd be remiss not to say just a dear friend and leader in my life, and very, very gracious and thankful to call you a friend, Kevin Penry. You're welcome, Kevin. Kevin is no stranger to this podcast. He's the OG, episode number 1. So if you go way, way back, you got to scroll on the thread. You got to scroll on the feed for a while. Kevin is episode 1. If you want to learn about silverbacks, but I'm not going to tell you what that's about. You got to go listen to the episode as he smiles and laughs at me. Also, episode 76. We began to explore again together some more. Mm-hmm. So we've done this twice. So this will be the third time we have done this. But this is his first time on the Restoration Group podcast, officially, since we've rebranded. But you are no stranger, of course, to the journey that we are on as a company. And so thank you for that. Kevin's been a faithful mentor to numerous businesses that I personally have the privilege of leading and running. And I know that many of you will benefit from hearing his wisdom. That, to be honest, Kevin and I, we are exploring today. We have right?
We're always exploring.
We are always, I guess maybe I should say we're capturing the exploration, that this is going to be, it might be a little messy, but we're going to go into some ideas and thoughts, and we're going to go explore together.
Yeah, as you describe our time together this morning, the thing that flashed before me was, if I went back and listened to all 3 of our times together, did I say the same thing over and over and over again? You know, have I got 6 words that I just repeat? And I'm just on a stuck record, so I don't know. You know
what? Let's hope that somebody listening actually goes and does the exercise to go listen to the others and then give us feedback, because then we'll know that somebody's at least paying attention. They let us know, we say the same thing all 3 times? I anticipate there could be themes, but I doubt we're going to say the same thing all 3 times. Okay, so we have a mutual friend, Michael Mead. Right, as a partner of mine at Restoration Group. You know Michael well. Years ago, Michael said a quote to me. It's not Michael's quote. He always likes to emphasize this, though he wrote his name underneath the quote on my whiteboard, so I give him credit. But that if you don't have problems to solve, you're dead. And he wrote that on my whiteboard once and left the room. And I was like, wow, that was pretty heavy. And then actually, he and I, over the next couple of years together, went through losing some very close friends and family members. So it actually was it was a pointed quote that we ended up having to explore the death side of it, interestingly, as friends and as business partners. But there is a truth in that if you are a leader at a small business, if you are a follower of Jesus, if you are alive, there are problems to be solving. It's actually, whether it's relational, whether it's leadership, management, personal, finance, marketing, take your pick, technology, do I start a podcast, whatever it is, there are problems to be solving. And we never arrive, because the moment we solve one, I believe another one will emerge, even if we don't know what it is. And so it's kind of the theme that I want to paint for us, Kevin. And I know we'll explore more, but as I share that quote, as I even kind of stir on it a little bit, what resonates for you? What comes to mind in this vein?
Just, the word paradox comes up again and again because it seems so present as I look at what Jesus did, his interactions with those around him, the things he said, the profound statements of exclusion that he made, the profound statements of inclusion that he made. An interaction with Jesus seemed like was most often paradoxical. You know, he presented two things that seemed to be in tension with one another, whether it was the reaction of the priest to the Samaritan that was in the ditch, or the Samaritan's reaction to the person that was in the ditch. This thing about the woman at the well. It's just over and over again, he was saying things to people that challenged people.
Okay.
And the reason where my mind went to paradox is that God has gifted us with the ability to solve problems, and in fact, in some instances, to really be excited about problems and seeking solutions for it. And at the same time, our ability to solve our problems can oftentimes stand in the way of our appropriate and active surrender to God.
Meaning our functional ability, like the fact that we actually could be good at solving problems.
Yes, it's like once I embrace the process of problem solving, if I'm not careful, I will. The next step is I will take ownership of it, or maybe I start with ownership of it, and then I demonstrate through my life and my growing up that I can solve problems. It feels good when I solve problems. Then all of a sudden I have to go through probably at some point a lesson where I learn that I've got a problem I cannot solve, and that's when God really gets our attention, and we begin to realize that we're not the ultimate problem solver, and then we've got to walk this fine line between taking on problems and being able to solve them, and yet at the same time believe that God is the true problem solver. And then we got to try to figure out, what does that balance look like? What does that tension look like? Is this problem mine or is it God's? Do I need to work on this, or do I just need to surrender and allow God to resolve it? And there's just so much tension in that. For me, this is probably representative of how I'm built. My life has been a continual learning to manage that tension of, okay, scoot over, I can fix this, or I've got this, or whatever. I think of all the words that come out to demonstrate, a person who feels confident in problem solving, and yet that can certainly get out of order in our dependence upon God as the supreme problem solver, and usually that ends up involving a problem that we can't solve.
So let's explore the tension there and the experience, like in the tension. Okay. So what that might, what someone who is there trying to problem solve in their capacity, thought, mind, energy, resource, and who maybe is not opening, is not being aware to, is not opening their heart posture. And I have been there. I actually can think of in 2022, I was really struggling with solving a financial opportunity. I was trying to find resources and I couldn't see it. And you kept saying to me, Clay, the resources are there. And I couldn't find it. Like I couldn't find it. I remember, so I'm starting to answer a little bit, but I remember being really frustrated, like frustrated at myself, frustrated at people around me, frustrated at God. What are other experiences in the tension where maybe when we are not, maybe the time hasn't come yet. Maybe we are being submitted and open to God solving the problem, but just like the time hasn't come. What are other experiences, emotions that you think could be present in the tension between this balancing of what we're supposed to solve and releasing for God to solve?
Okay, so the word that I've heard that for me describes it most fully, and this probably comes somewhere through John Ortberg or Dallas Willard, but the term active surrender. And, so often when we think of surrender, we think we just lie down, we just fall and it's like, I can't go any further.
Sounds passive.
It's passive, very, very passive. And obviously there are times when I think God might call upon us to be fully surrendered, and not be able to do anything. Certainly there are people, and many of us have experienced times whenever we could do nothing to solve the problem that we were facing. But more times than not, we're facing a problem that that's going to require some action on our part. And yet, if we begin to take ownership of that, I feel like we can run the risk of going too far. In other words, how do we actively surrender? How do we say, God, this is yours. I know you're bigger than this problem. You're bigger than me, and I want you to allow this to become an opportunity or the appropriate way. Just like Paul, when Paul prayed for his affliction to be removed, and the response was,
sure.
my grace is sufficient, So there are times that the solutions to the problem, to whatever problem we face, is not the best thing for us. Sometimes constraints lead us to new conclusions. Constraints can lead us to new opportunities. If we're able to successfully solve every problem, then we probably either don't have enough problems, or we're not in a place where innovation would be able to surface. In what is it? I'm flashing back to something that I may get totally wrong, but in the latitudes of our Earth where climate is not the challenge and it's paradise, whether it's tropical or whatever it may be, there's not a lot of innovation that emerges from those areas, that you're not going to see massive innovation coming from the most pleasant environments. That in fact, most innovations emerge from the places where it's tougher to live, where you're facing extreme climate conditions or extreme problems of some kind or opposition of whatever it may be. So problems are not merely something that we want to make go away. They become an integral part of what we become. And so there's a very constructive element to whatever problem we face, and the benefit or the detriment lies in how we respond to it, how we react to it. And I don't know any more than that, other than I enjoy problem solving. I find it fulfilling whenever I'm able to solve a problem, but I've reached a place in my life where I feel like I have surrendered actively more of myself to God, to where if I can't solve a problem, I am able to live with that and realize that God stands ready to bring a solution, to relieve whatever the condition is, and that until he's ready to do so, what is there for me to learn? What alternatives are there for me to see? What things do I need to explore that if this problem were not present in my life right now, I wouldn't even be thinking about? So problems work as a catalyst for us to make new discoveries, and certainly even discover more about our Creator, discover more about God and his love for us and what he stands ready to do. And invariably, along this journey, as he presents himself as our ultimate protector or problem solver, he's going to surprise us, with things that we know we couldn't do. And then when we get in trouble is whenever we begin to take credit for it. That's when we decide, look, I must really be good. So problems and how we respond to them are they're woven into the fabric of who we are and who we become pretty deeply.
The who we become piece. So you invited me over a few weeks ago, and we sat together, chatted, talked books, talked life. Oh, I almost said life, liberty, and we did talk about some American weavings. There was some life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what that means, all these things. But because it was holiday time, there definitely was a Christmas puzzle out on the table that we were. You had been working on for time, and we began to riff. We began to explore, and you began to even share some thoughts and some learnings you had been having, even on this idea of solving problems. It's really that's what a puzzle is, right? We're solving a problem in front of us, and just some, honestly, some emerging thoughts that you were stirring on that were coming from that time. So. Maybe take me to some context there, or use that as a segue to some other thoughts that you've been praying and thinking on.
Yeah, for several years, I began to as over the course of time, and I don't know if it's just you could answer better than I, whether doing puzzles is something that rests with a generation, or if it's if new and upcoming generations embrace it. I know most of our grandkids and now great grandkids have puzzles, that we put before them. So I think we recognize that there's a developmental attribute to working with puzzles. And then somehow over time I've found puzzles present in unique times. Usually we've kind of fallen into a routine of, because if family's going to be together over extended time, extended days, we'll get something going. We'll get a puzzle going somewhere and just kind of watch it progress over the holidays. Oddly enough, the other place I remember puzzles being so present was in an environment of palliative care, hospice care. Yeah, to where the location was people in their last final days. And so families were present, people were there, and yet there was the passage of time, and you didn't, you had to find some way to kind of occupy your time, and at the same time, you're there to be present. And I remember in that location there were several puzzles scattered throughout the building, and I was always amazed at the progress that would move forward if I'd go away for a day and then come back. One got more completed and all of that. So. I don't know how broad of an audience puzzles have today, but to the extent that I've described, they've found their way into my life, and I began to discover metaphors in it about relative to leadership, because I thought. So invariably, you get this thing home, and usually we're trying for 1,000 pieces or more, so you dump it out. And
so ambitious. I got like 250 over here, Kevin. I don't know.
Yeah. So you dump it out, and it's just like, oh my God, what were we thinking? It's like this. What are we going to do? And the little ones just coming up. They if you're doing something, they want to be involved. And they come over and they're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And their eyes just kind of glaze over for a while. And you watch them try to hammer a couple of pieces together, 2 or 3 times. Just like, no, don't do that. And then I found myself realizing, okay, what can I do? Well, first of all, I want to turn all the pieces over so I can get to know them better. See what they are. What do they represent? Same way in business or as an entrepreneur or as an employer or as a team leader within an organization. You want to become aware. You want to know what you've got to work with. What's your resource? You want to recognize that you've got this piece with blue on it or this piece with red on it. But maybe even prior to that, you begin to recognize, okay, there's only 4 corners. If it's a square puzzle or a rectangular puzzle, there's only 4 corners. Let's find those 4 corners.
Those 4 key pieces.
Those 4 key pieces. So we know we can identify those. We know there are only 4 of them, and we know exactly how to identify them because corners are very clearly shaped. And then let's continue with something that's distinctly different, and that would be all the edge pieces. You know, so let's go through and let's separate all the edge pieces and everything that's got a straight edge on it, you know, let's set it aside. So let's work just in the beginning with just these pieces that we can identify. We know are the border. There's the four corners. We know the dimension of the thing because we can read it on the box. So, you know, we can kind of place those corners and see, okay, this is the scale and the scope of this thing, and start laying out its footprint. And it's like, oh, okay, there's so many similar things to this with my experience of starting something, a venture, a business, a building, a home, a project, whatever it may be. And actually, a prerequisite to this, you know, I'm always quoting Churchill about the spaces we work in.
Yeah.
Where he says, and I'll butcher it a little bit, but he says, you know, we create our buildings and thereafter, we create the shape of our buildings and thereafter they shape us.
Yeah.
So the environment in which we work, it has an integral role in whatever it is we're trying to do. You know, get the right environment for that puzzle, you know, and this last holiday.
Yeah, because you had your board set out.
I
I'm
did.
even thinking about you had like your board, the pad set out.
I had a piece of foam board because I knew I was working on the same table that we were going to be eating at and gathering at, so I knew I was going to have to move it. I was going to have to, and so I got it all set up with appropriate environment. And if I'm starting a business, I'm going to look for a space that will appropriately contribute to and accommodate whatever it is I'm trying to achieve. You know, if it involves the need for warehouse space, if it involves, is it just office space? Is there not a building involved? Is it a virtual environment where I can lead my team? And if so, how do I create that virtual environment in such a way? So I create the right space, then I identify, you know, I see what all is it I have. I throw the pieces out there. I turn them over so I can get to know them better and understand what I'm facing. I can segregate those things that are easily identifiable. This is an edge piece. This is a corner. And then it goes from there. And as you and I spoke that day, one of the most crucial things is the lid on the box. You know, because that tells me what this thing's going to look like. And as an entrepreneur, I may be the one in charge of that. You know, it may be that the lid on the box, the metaphor for the lid on the box, or what the lid on the box might be a metaphor, would be for the vision of the entrepreneur. This is what it's going to look like, or this is what we have in mind. And then, you know, if we're going to bring our conversation to integrating what's God's and what ours, then, you know, we really got to ask ourselves, is this vision, is this mine? Or is it higher than me? Is it something, is God brought this to me and entrusted to me to execute?
Yeah.
And that lid on the box becomes so critical, because then you start to find the pieces that go in the right, you can at least get them in the right area. And then ultimately they find their way together. And the challenges that you face along the way, there are so many. I cannot remember doing a puzzle that at some point I'd become so frustrated, whether it been hours or days, in looking for a piece, that I become convinced that the manufacturer has done it to me. You know, that okay, you.
It's like a Persian rug with one mistake. They left one piece out. Just
didn't, and then it's like, and so that then becomes closely relatable to a trust issue that I might have if I feel like my direction or my vision has been inspired by God. You know, is He holding back on me? You know, has he taken a few pieces out? Has He saying, hey, watch this? He's got an idea as to what He's going to do, but I'm going to withhold a few pieces here so that He can't do it. Or am I going to trust that He really wants the best for me? Is my vision in alignment with His wishes? And then with that trust, can I believe that all the pieces are in fact present? And that becomes a struggle, you know, through the puzzle. And it's only overcome whenever you find the piece that you thought the manufacturer had left out. And it's like, okay, that's right. And then there's been other times where we got down to just a handful of pieces, and we might have had 5 or 6 pieces, and it wouldn't work. And it was like, what's the deal? This doesn't make any sense. And invariably what I would find was I had a piece in the wrong place somewhere. And I had to go back and find out, what do I have in a place that looks like it fits, but it really doesn't. And once you discover that piece and you take it out, then usually just within a matter of moments, all the remaining pieces drop into place. And I thought so many times, and this is where I'm at after having retired 7 years ago. I've continued to have the opportunity to work with great folks such as yourself and other churches and organizations. And I oftentimes find myself resting as they invite me in to, usually my niche is kind of in multi-site operations, how to replicate something that's working. Usually I find myself becoming aware of whether all the pieces are present or not. Are there specific pieces that are missing? And I'll spend some time, trying to become familiar with the pieces.
Yeah.
Seeing what they have in place. Where have they gone? What's the lid on the box look like? Are you doing what you need to do for the image that you see on the lid on the box to actually emerge and come about? And it's just really interesting, the confidence that I feel if I know the pieces are present. Because if the pieces are present, then if you've got people that are problem solvers, are gifted in solving problems, know how to do it, they're going to find their way into the mix. Especially whenever, and that lid on the box may not be visible all the time. It may only come, you may only get glimpses of it. But eventually it emerges. So it's kind of crazy, but it's, I really feel like that type of exercise nurtures the skill set that serves entrepreneurs and leaders of people and others and those who wish to see a vision come about. It really helps equip them to do that very thing. I don't know how stupid that sounds.
It is not stupid at all. I absolutely love it. I think I'm over here the whole time that you're just sharing through that, all the different elements. I'm thinking of specific experiences on the journey that it displays.
Okay.
So let's take as you're organizing all the pieces, beginning to turn them over and get awareness on all of them. I think of relationships or people that I met over the years that at the time I was originally meeting them, understanding who they are, becoming a student of them, wasn't the time for them to come be a part of what we were doing as a business. And Michael is an example. Like we kind of talked about Michael earlier. I knew Michael long before that. And because I had been coached by wonderful people, I had a posture of trying to see people who were doing kingdom work, cared about business. I continued to only have a part of the vision at that point that I could understand of what God was doing. That piece didn't fit in that part of the vision. But yet, as the vision expanded, or I understood the box more, to stay in the metaphor, as God revealed more and more of it, then I recognized that he could fit in a different part of the puzzle. And God brought those, and he had his journey to go on, and he was doing the same thing. And we began to see, oh, wait, these fit together at this point, at this part of it. And so I think, even as, you're talking about organizing all the pieces and this and that, well, you begin to go work on a section of it. Yeah. I'm not working on the whole puzzle the whole time. I'm working on this red part of the truck. I'm just going to keep working on all the red pieces and work on that right now. But that doesn't mean you don't observe all the other things.
Certainly.
And so that was just literally an example that popped in my mind that was a year's gap that over time God began to show another part, and then it brought it into it. So
can you imagine what your experience would be like if you had such low confidence and trust in who supplied the puzzle that as you needed a piece, you simply got your pocket knife out and started carving on a piece that was close enough and force it to fit? That at that point, because I see that happening over and over and over again in organizational development.
Can we let's take a stab at trying to, sorry, you had a knife out and we were carving up pieces and then I said,
That's
take
right.
a stab. Let's take a chance at trying to describe what a leader is experiencing, if maybe that's what they're doing. In other words, because I don't know that somebody who hears that would think, well, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So like, what could their experience be? What could the scenario be?
Well, this is gonna take me back to our previous conversation. So this is the part that's probably gonna sound like maybe it replicates.
Good.
And that is, am I putting this puzzle together believing that the manufacturer supplied me with all the pieces, that there's somebody else who's the artist of what this visual representation is, and my task is simply to help the pieces find their way together to where it all fits? Or is my mind one of, this is my problem, this is my puzzle, it's going to look like I want it to look, and therefore I've got to solve this problem? And so it's more, to me, whenever I speak of pulling a pocket knife out and starting carving on a puzzle piece to make it fit, that's the kind of drive that I think is in tension in entrepreneurs that brings them to the table to begin with. Let's face it, those of us that have started something, built something from scratch.
You don't want to vilify that.
No, you don't
Right.
want to vilify. It's got to be present.
Yeah.
But it's got to be in balance. And so it's that attitude of, I can solve this, I can fix this, scoot over, get out of my way. And yet with the passage of time, you make enough mistakes, there's enough offsetting cost from that reactive trait that I learn to respond and meet the need in such a way that I lower the cost, the offsetting cost that's associated with it. I begin to say, okay, yeah, if I want to just pick myself up by the bootstraps and hammer at this thing long enough, I can, I'm going to make it work, but it probably is not going to be all that it could be.
Yeah.
If I'm not finding the answer, if I'm faced with a problem that I can't solve, my initial response now is not, oh my God, how am I going to solve this? It's God, what am I not seeing? What am I listening close enough? Am I observant enough? And we would hope that the folks that are engaged in the podcast have discovered the gift of seeing our Creator as our partner in the visions that He gives us and the directions that He takes us. But whatever the case may be, there's a place at which you begin to realize me driving harder is not going to get us where we need to go. And that's what it might look like. Carving cutting a piece, carving it out. Yeah. And what you don't realize, or at the time, is when we start cutting on those pieces and we get them in the wrong place, we've messed up the whole picture. And because if we've got the wrong piece in the wrong place, the piece that belongs there will never find its way there.
Yeah.
And the place where that piece belongs is going unfilled.
Yeah.
And I know that is repeated over and over and over again in our organizations. Whether through sanctioned incompetence, we've got somebody that's in a role that they're not built for, they're not supposed to be in that place, but just because there's going to be some crucial conversations involved or some discomfort, we're not willing as leaders to step into that and bring resolution. And the longer we let that set, the more it begins to infect the total project. The longer that piece that I've put in the wrong place resides in that place, the more it's amplified.
Yeah, because the more cascading effects it will have on the rest of the vision, on the rest of the organization.
And chances are good that if I did that once, I've probably done it more than once.
Yeah,
I've probably taken it upon myself to reshape pieces to fit a spot in a puzzle that I'm not the creator of. And therein the challenge.
Have you most often seen that? I think it applies in numerous areas, but do you most often see that with people and roles, or more so other elements of a business or an organization?
I think it can be everything. I think it's most common. the majority of organizations that I work with, by far the most predominant budgetary element is staff.
Yeah.
Is people.
Yeah.
And the way things are being achieved and being accomplished is through an effective team and people. Therefore, it's most common, I think, there. Certainly we can make mistakes in trying to predict the market's reaction
or products or product
there's any number of things, but people, how many, and so think about this. If I'm exhibiting this kind of less than accurate behavior as the leader, chances are good I've got more people that are emulating my actions.
It's a pretty challenging mirror to hold up, Kevin. It can be pretty uncomfortable.
Well, it just doesn't work. You'll never get the puzzle done.
Yeah.
And there's a part of active surrender that takes place in successfully completing a puzzle. Part of that active surrender is, I didn't make this thing. I'm just trying to help the pieces find their way to where they belong. Now, if I'm just bent on this is mine and I made it, it opens up a whole nother set of rules. And I don't even know how to effectively address that, as far as, but unless you are literally going to go and make that puzzle.
Is this the ownership versus stewardship? Even
Exactly.
like if we just think about attention and think about comparative terms,
That's
like
it.
this is an ownership of this is mine.
Yes.
Versus no, this is the role and I'm the leader here, and yes, I founded it, and yes, I started it, and yes, I might own 100% of it, but this is not mine.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
And this is going to take me back to probably the first podcast we did when Jesus looked on the multitude and was moved with compassion because he saw them as sheep having no shepherd. And his response was not, how am I going to fix this? His response was, pray to the Lord of the harvest that he'll send laborers into the field. And so it's like Jesus himself, in my interpretation, did not take upon himself the burden of the solution. He handed it off to the Father, to the Lord of the harvest. And then what he did, but by praying for that the Lord of the harvest will send laborers into the field, that shifted the focus of those that he was speaking to away from how are we going to solve this, to open your eyes and recognize whenever there are resources brought to you that fit the need. And that's a wonderful place to live as an entrepreneur, as an operations leader, as a manager, whatever word you want to put, as a team leader. If you can shift your mindset to this is God's, and God, but I'm not just going to sit back. My surrender is going to be an active surrender. I know I'm involved. I'm a part of this. Now, what is my role? My role is to recognize when he's sending my role is to recognize the piece and be familiar enough with the puzzle that I think, I remember last time I got a glimpse, that color was in the upper right. And so I'm able to move it up to the upper right. And it's going to help find its way. If I don't know how to address it if I make it mine, because I didn't make the thing. I didn't draw the picture. I didn't produce the puzzle. I didn't make the shapes. Somebody else did all of that. Now, how much of that is in common with us in our lives with God? And there's a lot of talk and debate that could occur there. But I've reached the point in my life where I recognize it's all his. But I feel a very active role in that I get the joy of watching him bring pieces to the picture. And then whatever I've experienced, if that can play a part in helping those pieces find their way to the right spot in the puzzle. And that's very fulfilling.
Kev, let's maybe wind down. Let's maybe wind down with talking to a leader that is with us, is hearing this, is encouraged, is challenged, and is processing if they have been leading in a way or coming with a posture that the puzzle is theirs, that the business is theirs, those that they lead are theirs. And of course, this is not binary, and this is not like a one-time, like, I make this choice and it's no longer mine. Like, this is going to be dynamic, and different scenarios and tensions are going to make you toggle back and forth. And right. But maybe just speak to somebody who's there and listening and is like, okay, I want to have my business or the team that I lead. I want the puzzle to be God's. I want to relinquish that. Maybe encourage them, equip them, process some ideas to help them begin to actively, active surrender, actively begin to surrender that.
Well, it starts with trust, and I don't know, maybe it ends there. You know? Maybe that's it. It's like, okay, is God is my creator? Is he setting up on this, this tall stool with a number that he's flashing up and scoring my reaction? You know, is he a harsh judge that is assessing how I'm doing, and not necessarily in as constructive light as I would like for him to? You know, or is God a loving God that stands ready to do everything beyond everything that I could ask, think, or imagine? And is it possible that I get in his way? You know, and I think what I would say to the individual that you described would be the journey starts inside you as the leader, as an entrepreneur. Where do you stand on this question? Is this God's or is it yours? And then realize that if it's yours, it's not going to be any bigger than what you can do. But if it's God's, it'll be beyond what you could imagine. And if that, I think that's the part that's got to be reconciled in the beginning. And once that's in place, that will then find its way into impacting everything else that we're talking about, whether it's attracting the right people, recognizing their gift mixes, learning to develop those gifts, learning what the needs are of the organization to achieve a given outcome. It's a journey, and it's embracing the journey. But most importantly, it's trusting that you have a Father, a Heavenly Father, that is on your side, that is there. There's a Lord of the harvest, and just pray that He sends resources, the resources that are needed. And if a resource is not coming, instead of saying, God, why aren't you sending this? Why are you numb to my pain? Why are you not? Instead say, God, what is it I need to see? Where else do I need to look? This constraint that you brought unto me, what role does it need to play in achieving your outcome, your gift? And that would, for me, to me, that defines active surrender. It's not doing nothing. It's being actively involved, but surrendering, knowing that this is not mine.
I think I very quickly forget the previous time that I was in that posture and God solved it in some way, shape, or form, or brought me insight, right? Or brought opportunity. I think I very quickly forget those moments and can fall into the trap of that.
Of course. Then
becoming like, well, but I solved this last time and this worked last time, so I'm going to try to then take that piece. And if we even think about that as a piece, like this problem-solving mechanism, approach, posture, process, and I'm going to reapply it and think that that is the path. I think I fall in that trap a lot.
And that's just the struggle with our egos, and if we, God's given us that, and those seeds are in there and they have a role to play.
Yeah.
It's when they get out of balance.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting for a moment that
the previous experiences or the previous learnings or previous understandings aren't relevant.
Well, not only not relevant, but their relevancy is not the question as much as the drive that's in me to want to own something, I believe is God-given. Herein lies the paradox that we started off with.
Okay.
That drive that wants me to own that puzzle, that I want to own the puzzle,
Yeah.
and declare myself the conqueror of,
Is
God-given.
Yeah.
And yet it is there in a paradoxical way to illuminate the difference then in an active surrender. And we as human beings are continually battling and learning that all throughout history and throughout time and through our lives, and just being aware of it.
And I think a place of trust comes from accepting that won't stop.
Yeah.
Meaning that and that doesn't mean he's not trustworthy because of the fact that it's a continual thing that just keeps.
It's there over and over and over again in the scripture. The prodigal son, just comes to mind. Dad's a good dad, and I'm welcome back. I thought I wanted to go out and do it all on my own.
Yeah.
Now that I've blown it all, I wonder if I can just, come back and be a servant.
And Dad's a good dad to the son who was there and getting to take the blessing of everything that he had along the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I was ungrateful for what I had.
Yeah.
Yes. Because even as you were just sharing through that kind of closing piece and on the trust thing, how I was experiencing and thinking through business challenges and projects that I'm in right now, and how quickly I forget, which is the story of God's people and us forgetting what he has did, 5 minutes ago, but forgetting the active nature of trusting him, and how he always comes through in his way. And that doesn't mean, and even, more than we think, dream, or imagine, doesn't mean more resource, more money, more winning in business, all those pieces. That doesn't always mean that. You and I both believe that. But it means more of him and knowing him. You had a thought right there. Yeah.
Well, I see the things that benefit us create greater challenges for us.
The things that benefit us create greater challenges for us.
If they were to go away. I've asked myself, if we came through a pandemic, what if we had a digital virus? What if none of our phones worked? What if we weren't able? What if during the pandemic we were maintained through that pandemic by the consistency and steadiness of our digital environment? So all of us knew what our bank accounts looked like. We were able to complete our financial transactions. We were able to pay people. We were able to get paid. What if that was halted? What if that got turned upside down? We still had our smartphones and we could map to wherever it is we were wanting to go.
Yeah.
I don't know, but as these gifts that have come unto us become more integrated into our lives, I fear our ability to function if we lose them. And so I don't know how capable we are, certainly in various generations, of being able to find our way somewhere without a smartphone mapping it for us.
Sure.
I'm a little worried. I'm excited about machine learning and artificial intelligence, but I don't know how will that possibly begin to diminish our creative abilities.
Yeah.
If now automation is doing yet something more for us on an entirely different scale, are we going to become less creative? Have we become weaker in our problem-solving skills?
Yeah.
Have we? So it's just a whole host of things that I wonder how they might complicate.
Yeah.
But it's not my problem. You know, it's God's, and I trust Him to lead us through it.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
More curious than certain.
Yeah.
More curious than certain. Kevin, I won't have enough words to say thanks, so I'll just say thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy
the conversation.
Final thoughts or closing spaces that you want to share on or button up, or?
I don't know. If sometimes I wonder if it's just the ramblings of an old man. So I don't want to get in anybody or anything's way, and I find such great joy in watching God at work, and that is very present. That surrounds you, Clay, and all the things that you set out to achieve. It's fun to watch God at work.
You ahead of time you talked about that. You hoped that the time would contribute to at least one person and who they were becoming, right? Who they were becoming. So at least know that one person, me, if they are ramblings of an old man, to use your words, not mine, if they are, they are a great gift, at least to me.
Well, thank you.
In God shaping me and even reminding me, because even in this conversation, I'm thinking of specific projects that I'm working on and how quickly I can toggle between the postures of it's mine and I've got to solve it. And with the things I understand right now, I get stressed and my fist and my hand just keeps tightening and tightening and tightening because I can't solve it. This is a bigger puzzle. And I know I need to look for that corner piece and I know the sequencing, but I can't but what actually even got me that opportunity was the healthy posture of no, God, this is yours. And that's what brought the thing. And then yet I go take my own willpower lens to try to solve. And so even in this conversation, it helped me in becoming who I hope to be. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. To all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for sharing your time with us. And until next time, choose life. Thanks for tuning in. To find out more about how Restoration Group can serve your business, go to restorationgroup.co or click the link in the show notes below.